Hey guys, I'm super excited to talk about The Fisherman by John Langan with you guys because this book is the cosmic horror novel of my dreams. It was so good and so creepy and so deeply unsettling. I loved it. The Fisherman begins with our main POV character, Abe, recounting this horrific eldritch experience he had a few years back at a place called Dutchman's Creek. Dutchman's Creek is pretty hard to find on a map. You might have to trace your finger along the stream a few times before you're able to find it, but once you have found it, it'll stick out to you so obviously that you'll wonder how you ever missed it in the first place. So Abe began fishing a while after he tragically lost his wife to cancer, and eventually he starts to bring his coworker along with him following the loss of his coworker's whole family. They end up hearing about this Dutchman's Creek, and despite warning from the locals, they decide to try their luck fishing there. At this point, there's a break in the narrative, and we get to hear the very creepy origin of Dutchman's Creek before we come back and resume Abe's story. So, generally, I don't love when a book is about someone telling a story from their past because to me, that eliminates a lot of the tension because we know the character's outcome. That being said, I still think it was very well done here. There were definitely some scenes where I was glued to the page, even though I knew that Abe was alive to tell us the story. In terms of Abe himself, I quite enjoyed him as a character. We don't get to spend the whole book with him, of course, because we do have that flashback origin story, but the parts that we did get, I found him to be very realistically written, and I found that any decisions that he made as I was following along seemed like they came logically and naturally. So, I want to spend a bit of time talking about the cosmic elements of this world and of the world building that John Langan created in this story. Basically, the idea is that our world is a fake, it's a mask, it's a cover for the real world that is underneath. And that real world was discovered by scholars who studied ancient knowledge, a language that had control over the powers of our world, the existence of cities along a black ocean where plague doctors are authority figures. It was so cool. And we only got bits and pieces of it, but it was so good. I was so fascinated by it, and I wanted to know more. As much as I wanted to know more, the mystery and the allure of knowing all of this stuff is beneath our world, just out of sight, just out of reach, was what made it so horrifying for me. As with most cosmic horror that I've read, it's a bit of a slow burn to get to the truly horrific parts, but once they hit, and they do, they hit hard. John Langan managed to create such a deeply unsettling atmosphere that builds throughout the book. And when we finally do get to the culmination of it all, it left me horrified and speechless. There were a few scenes near the end that were so disturbing and so grotesque. It reminded me a lot of the latter half of Uzumaki by Junji Ito, where I was so disturbed by what I was reading, but I was also so completely unable to tear my eyes away from the page. Like I couldn't look away even if I wanted to. The fisherman takes a very ugly look at human nature in the face of profound grief. And by that I mean the depths that someone is willing to sink to alleviate themselves of that grief, even if all they're doing is just slapping a band aid over a gaping wound. And they know that they're just slapping a band aid on, but they're doing it anyways because a band aid is better than truly letting that wound heal. One of my favorite aspects of cosmic horror is the inevitability that comes along with these stories. We watch as our characters are making choices and taking actions that are leading them on this track to a horrifying conclusion. And it almost feels like people are just pieces on a chessboard being jerked around by forces beyond our understanding. Past the inevitability is the hopelessness that comes along with realizing just how insignificant humanity is. We're not here trying to take down these eldritch gods. We're just trying to escape their notice as long as possible and hope that we can make it to the end alive. That inevitability and that hopelessness is what makes cosmic horror so terrifying for me and why it's my favorite subgenre of horror. So I wholeheartedly recommend The Fisherman for fans of slow burn, atmospheric horror with vivid and grotesque imagery that will stick with you. If you like this video, please subscribe and leave me a comment if you've read this or if you want to read this. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!